Hello, welcome to Smash Hit Sports. I'm Cody, that's Nick, and today we are going through our ACC predictions for every single team in the conference. We're going to give our conference predictions for the championship game and who our ACC champion is going to be. And then we're going to do an ACC draft. So drafting some of the best aspects of the ACC. Interested to see how that goes. So without further ado, Nick, they return every single starter on defense.
I don't believe that he's not going to drool down his freaking mouth and piss down his leg like an idiot.
Mario Cristobal has to get it together this year.
My buddies and I have talked about this. Like, we will end it all.
I think that Preston Stone at SMU is the best quarterback right now in the state of Texas. Let's start with Boston College. Their win total is 4.5. They hired Bill O'Brien in the offseason after Jeff Hafley left to be the defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers, which you don't see super often for a college head coach to leave to be a coordinator at the NFL, but should be interesting. Nick, what are your initial thoughts on Boston College this year?
Yeah, thoughts on Boston College, sadly, are I feel like they just don't have, like, the NIL at all. I feel like they don't care. I don't think they have, like, any NIL. Well, at least when I was tracking it in basketball, like, everyone's transferring out. If anyone's good, it feels like they're leaving. It's hard to recruit to, come play in the cold, brutal Boston winters. The trajectory isn't necessarily that ideal. I do want them to be good, but just looking through their roster, like Kyle Robichaux is their running back, right? And then Thomas Castellanos.
Yeah, Castellanos is he's fine, but he does nothing for me as a quarterback that excites me.
Yeah, so to me, it's clear as day that they will not make a bowl. Bill O'Brien, good coach, but it's kind of one of those things like Matt Rule, comes back, doesn't mean you're going to be great that next year, right? It kind of takes a little bit. So this year specifically, I think, let me see, I have them losing a lot of games, Cody. I maybe I'll just go through who I have them losing to. Maybe that's how I'll do it, but
yeah, because they have a difficult out-of-conference schedule. They play Missouri and Michigan State in 2 of their 3 out-of-conference games.
I know, and I have them.
That's tough. Yeah,
and aren't both on the roads or something too? I feel like
Michigan State is at home, but they have to go to at Missouri.
Yeah, so at Missouri, you're losing by a good chunk right there. You can presume that that's not even going to be a ball game. They could beat Michigan State. They definitely could.
Fair. It is at home.
I have them with enough losses that even if they did beat Michigan State, they're not in a bowl anyway. I have them losing to FSU, which that's their week 1 game. Yeah. So you forget that it goes FSU, Missouri, Michigan State. That's lost.
Well, you got Duquesne. You sneak Duquesne.
You had Duquesne. Sorry. Okay. So then 1 and 3.
But 3 of their first 4 games are against some pretty tough teams.
Tough. And then I think I'm willing to chalk up Virginia Tech, Louisville, Syracuse, SMU as losses. So right there, that's 7 losses. I also have them losing to Virginia and to Pittsburgh. So 3 and 9.
Wow.
But it's one of those things where it's like, once the season's gone, what's really the point? It's like they're going to be in really bad shape quick, in my opinion. So
that's fair. I have them going 4-8. They are plus 15,000 to win the ACC.
Maybe sprinkle a little bit.
Yeah, maybe not a shot. That is, I'd rather donate my money to a good cause than those sports books. That is the third longest odds to win the conference title behind Wake Forest. Yes. The only ones longer, Wake Forest, Virginia, and Stanford. So
yeah. Okay. So Wake Forest that's interesting that they think Boston College is going to be better than Wake Forest. Not that I have any of those 3 teams making a ball game either, but
yeah. So we'll see. They were 7-6 last year, but do think with a lot of the talent transferring out, I think it's going to be a down year for him. So I'm going 4-8. No bowl game, nothing crazy like that. Well, let's move on to Cal because Cal's a really interesting team. They were solid last year, 6-7, made a bowl game. And Justin Wilcox has been there he's been there for a while. Like he was hired like 2017?
Yeah.
So he's been there for a minute. They have Jaden Ott, who is a damn good running back, one of the best in the sport. What do you think about this Cal team?
Yeah, it feels pretty similar. And I remember, we did our game picks last year. We went through the conferences last year. And I had this sneaky suspicion that Cal could pull off like I think they played Auburn last year, right? Because they did a home, so they're playing again. And I think I had them in that game, and then that game
went to overtime. That was a wild game,
right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I was like I felt justified in my thinking Cal could maybe pull a couple weird wins, but it also taught me that you can have that sneaky vibe and still lose in overtime. Like sometimes, it doesn't necessarily equate to me thinking Cal is eating for quality, and I don't. And I think the ACC has more depth than the Pac-12, so I think that Cal had some auto losses last year, but they're it feels like their schedule is kind of chock full of games that they just easily could lose. And I do have them making a bowl though. I have them going 6-6. I have them losing that Auburn game, FSU, Pitt, NC State, SMU, and Wake.
Yep. I mean, that's a totally fair assessment. I have them going 7-5, so just above that. Their win total is 6.5, so we're on opposite sides of the win total there, but split by a game. They play such an interesting schedule because they play at Auburn, and then they play San Diego State, which is a Mountain West team, and then they play the ACC schedule, but they also still play Oregon State. Like they have such a weird schedule, but I mean, there should be some good football games there. So if you're a Cal fan, I think you have some stuff to look forward to this year. I just don't think I think Jaden Ott could be in, conversations for the Doak Walker Award.
Yeah. I agree.
That's not out of contention.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yep. But plus 9,000 to win the ACC. I'm not putting any money on that at all.
Yeah, it won't be that won't be happening.
Yep. All right, let's talk about some of the big dogs in the conference. Your Clemson Tigers. They are 35th in returning production, so right about middle of the road. They have a top 30 strength of schedule, so a fairly difficult schedule. They return offensive coordinator Garrett Riley, which I'm excited for, but this is a team. They return Cade Klubnik. They're returning a lot of their guys. This should be a solid year for them, and they're going to find out quick because they play Georgia which, side note, I'm sick and tired of Georgia playing these fucking neutral site games in Atlanta. That's bullshit. That's not neutral site at all.
No, but Clemson's close enough where it should be pretty split. Like our fan base isn't not going to travel 2 hours to Atlanta. We're going to do it. The crazy thing is because we played them in Charlotte and we're closer to Charlotte, but it was split there. And Georgia is an hour away, if that, Athens to Clemson. I did that drive so easy Sunday mornings, wake up at noon, get back by red zone, simple. But so let's talk first. I obviously have a lot of thoughts about this.
But go off, King.
Let's talk first about the returning production. It's interesting because when you're Clemson, you don't get any transfers in, so any production that's gone is only replaced by freshmen, and those freshmen normally don't. For a lot of teams, don't have that big of an impact, but for Clemson, they do. Luckily, we do recruit very well and probably still will as long as we have Dabo. But when it's you look at the guys that left, Will Shipley left. You, I believe, took Bo Collins from us, right? Notre Dame.
Yep, transferred to Notre Dame.
But I look at it and I'm like, well, I like Phil Maffa maybe even more than Shipley. You have your quarterback back. You have the same offensive and defensive coordinator and head coach. You have Antonio Williams. You have 2 5-star receivers coming in. You have Troy Salato. You have Cole Turner. You have Jake Brenningstool coming back. Almost the whole entire offensive line with Matt Luke now as your O-line coach rather than the terrible one we had before. Matt Luke used to be Ole Miss's head coach, and now he's just doing O-line, which is his specialty. So that's extremely positive. On the defensive side, you have TJ Parker, who was a beast, Peter Woods, who was a beast. Both those guys, I believe, are freshmen. Vic Burley, were freshmen. Vic Burley as well. And then a great defensive end class. Barrett Carter came back. You lost Nate Wiggins. But like RJ Mickens, I think, is back there. Like, it to me feels like the same team for the most part. So I don't even look at like, oh, we lost production. I think that there's a better chance that we actually are more productive as a team, considering just the continuity aspect and having Garrett Riley, who really should bring more to the offense this year than he did, because we saw what he did with TCU. It wasn't great last year. My main thing that I think people sometimes forget about, do you remember that stat? And it was that Clemson had the most red zone trips out of any team in college football and the least amount of red zone points of any team in college football. You remember that stat?
Yeah, it was real weird.
It was like week 8 or 9.
Halfway through the year.
Yeah, it's not like it was like the NC State game. And it was like, yeah, so Clemson gets to the red zone more than any team. So they are very good at driving down the field. And then they fuck it up somehow. And that's the thing, is that now, people are like, well, how do you feel about Cade Klubnik? I'm like, I believe in that kid's ability to be really good, but I don't believe that he's not going to drool down his freaking mouth and piss down his leg like an idiot when the moment's big. When it's 3rd and goal from the 1, I'm going to be thinking that like there's a 50-50 shot that we fumble this ball and they return it for a touchdown. The fact that I'm thinking that shit is both good and bad. Bad because obviously I do think that that's like just, it happens so much. What's stopping it from still happening? But also, regression to the mean has to occur, right? Like, just a simple confidence boost in your ability to take care of the ball and score when you should, right? Like on a 3rd and goal or a 1st and goal from the 3, instead of getting intercepted by Malcolm Butler, you just freaking score, just do it. So I think that stuff's going to happen a lot more. And we're going to see I'm hoping for a less like chaotic Clemson team and just a more efficient Clemson team that doesn't give me, hemorrhoids.
Yeah. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with the chaos. Obviously you look back at Clemson season, 9-4 with a bowl win isn't bad, right? But that's not the standard to what Clemson has been the last couple of years. But when you look at those 4 losses, 2 of them were in overtime. You had the overtime loss to Florida State, who went undefeated. And then
we missed a 23-yard field goal to win that game because we didn't have a freaking kicker. We had to get the guy from Wall Street. He was working on freaking Goldman Sachs, and we were like, can you come kick for us?
Yep. And then you had an double overtime loss at Miami. And then you had a one-possession loss at NC State. Those are not outside of the – and then you open the season at Duke. That was just a weird game.
And that's kind of what I'm talking about.
The fumbles and the interceptions. That was the chaos.
We had like 10 red zone trips and like 10 points from it in that game alone.
That's one where Clemson, I know a lot of teams say this, but Clemson legitimately was 6 or 7 plays away from playing in the college football playoff last year.
Yeah.
So I feel good about this Clemson team. I have them playing for an ACC championship game. Breaking news. They are plus 350 to win the ACC. Their win total's 9.5. And I don't have them winning that Georgia game, but I do think that this is a Clemson team that is they are still at or around the top of college football. I truly believe that.
And again, it's like you're saying, I think a lot of people have sort of were preying on Clemson's downfall, which is so fair. Like,
Dynasty's end.
Exactly. Like there were times where I was playing on Alabama's downfall. And if they had a season like Clemson's last year, I'd be going into the next year saying like they're done, they're toast. It's not the same Alabama. But you have to just look at the way the ball bounced. And this goes back to the DJU days as well. Like that first Georgia game, losing 10-3, but the only touchdown they scored is on a pick six, right? It's like we played phenomenally on defense. We just DJU, man. Like it was a terrible throw. And it's just I haven't felt like we got dominated really in a loss still, like almost ever. Maybe that Notre Dame game 2 years ago was the only time where I was like, we got our shit kicked in. Other than that, though, every loss has been like, we should have won that game. We were just idiots. So we can stop being idiots, which I think is very possible. Then, yeah, I think this Clemson team has a great chance. Now, what I have, and I am optimistic in this sense, but I do have them beating Georgia because I have to believe that that's possible. And I truly do believe that that's possible. Now, I'll put a little asterisk that like that is easily a game that we could lose. So easily could lose, 38-21. And it's like, whatever. I won't even be that upset if we lose that game. But I have a win there. The big game for me is the Florida State game because we're playing DJ Uiagalelei. And if we lose to him when he's on Florida State, at Florida State, and my buddies and I have talked about this. Like we will end it all.
Suicide pact.
That is not like live seppuku into the stomach, freaking chop up the guts. It's over. That can't happen. I hope to God that that's the same energy, the team itself feels because that is a game that is so must win. I can't even explain it. So assuming we win that, because again, we can't lose it, right? And I also don't think Florida State's, I think we're better talent-wise. We win that then, and we beat Georgia, like where's the loss? Could be to NC State because they have our number, but we have them at home. I think Virginia Tech's the best shot at a loss just because of the atmosphere. And, at that point, the momentum might just be too high to overcome from Virginia Tech side. So I can see a loss there. You could flip it and say loss to Georgia, win the rest. You could also say loss to Virginia Tech and Georgia. As long as Florida State's not in there, I think 2 losses makes a lot of sense, but I'm going 11-1. Obviously that's optimistic. I think 10-2 is I'd be happy with that season. 9-3, I really don't think will happen. But if we make it to the ACC Championship, spoiler alert, actually I won't spoil it, but I do have us winning. So 12-1. And again, that's optimistic, but what do you expect from me? Look me in the eye.
I would judge you more harshly if it wasn't realistic, but that is fairly realistic. I don't think you're beating Georgia. But outside of that, I mean, I do think that's a realistic prediction. I have you going 10-2. I have you losing to Georgia. I have you losing to Florida State. It is what it is.
You have us losing to Florida State?
Florida State, night game in Tallahassee. That place is going to be rocking. What you don't understand is like you got to cancel the football team if that happens. Like no, that can't happen. It can't happen. It can't happen. But fine, whatever. That game it's giving me nightmares already. Yep. I'm looking forward to it. Let's talk about a team that lost a lot. They lost a ton of their production and they lost their head coach in Duke. Can they rebound, quote the basketball pun, from losing all of that talent? I don't think so. I'm going to be honest. I am going 5-7. They are plus 15,000. They have the same odds as Boston College to win the ACC. Their schedule isn't unbelievably difficult by any means. Their out of conference is Elon, Northwestern, UConn, and Middle Tennessee. Like that's a very, very easy out of conference schedule.
Yeah.
But I just don't. I don't like Malik Murphy. I feel like I've seen enough to not love what I see, and yeah, I'm cool with them at 5-7.
I'm definitely harsh on Duke. But again, it's the concept of like this school is so used to not caring really. And it just feels like they hit the reset button, and I just can absolutely see them going back at least for a year or two into the absolute gutter of the ACC. Because and you blame the transfer portal, like it's like your coach leaves, everyone leaves, no one's transferring in, right? Besides Malik
Yeah.
Murphy, I guess, from NC State. But I have the really harsh loss that I have is to Middle Tennessee. That one's really
That
mean
is
of
on the
me.
road. That is a weird
Yeah,
on
I
the
know.
road game. Yeah.
It is. And it's just like a early season, like I can just see it happening, like the line would be like Duke minus 14.5, and people are like, oh sure, I'll take that. And Middle Tennessee comes in and wins. People are like, what the hell? That's the one where it's like that probably won't happen. But the rest I feel decent about. Like Northwestern, I think is definitely in a better spot as a program. They should win that game. North Carolina rivalry game. I like the players on that team a hell of a lot more with Rucker and Omarion Hampton. Georgia Tech, I have that as a loss. Florida State, SMU, Miami, NC State, and VT are all very good teams. No way Duke beats them. So, really, bowl game isn't even in question for me. I don't think that's even possible based
Yep.
on
Their
this,
win total's 5.5.
which I would actually confidently take the under on that. I think.
That's fair. That's fair. All
So I
right,
haven't
keeping it
seen enough.
moving. The other big dog or big dog as of recent anyway, in Florida State. 19th most difficult schedule in college football, 51st in returning production though. So they did lose. I mean, whenever you have a team that good, you're going to lose a lot of guys to the draft. Their win total is the same as Clemson's at 9.5. And I
Yeah.
think that is telling. They're plus 290 to win the ACC, which is not. Clemson was plus 350. You're right there. They have the biggest week 0 game of anybody on the schedule. They play Georgia Tech in Dublin. But what are your thoughts on Florida State? I know you have Clemson beating them, but I think this is a Florida State team that I don't think they're as good as last year. I'm going to be
No,
honest. I just don't think they are.
they're not. And it's honestly shocking to me how many people think they'll be really, really good. Like when I see someone with Florida State, and clearly, well, do you have Florida State making the ACC championship game?
I didn't say that.
Okay,
I have
because
Clemson
what I
making
was
the
going to
ACC
say is
championship
that
game.
like I see people with Florida State in the college football playoff with the top 4 seed, and I think like that's that brain dead behavior because in my opinion, there's just no way. I do think they are good enough to stay ranked throughout the year. They're coached well. They have the chip on their shoulder thing, right? So weak-ish ACC. I don't think they'll be bad, but like it's freaking DJU. He's a bona fide moron. I just can't buy into like an 11-win DJU led Florida State team. I think their secondary is amazing, but other than that, I guess they have Patrick Payton replacing
He's a
Verse.
dog.
He's a dog. They have a good D tackle, but like other than their secondary itself, it's kind of just like pockets of talent where I'm like you don't have Coleman, you don't have Johnny Wilson.
They lost Trey Benson.
Lost Trey
lost
Benson.
A lot of talent.
O-line. So I and their schedule's not that easy either because like I have to have them losing that Clemson game, and then they're playing at Notre Dame, right?
Yep.
So I have them losing that, and then I think, yep, because it's at Notre Dame, so like I'm definitely doing that. I absolutely think a Miami loss is in the cards because I think this Miami team is, you could argue, equally as talented, if not more so. Right? I like Cameron Ward a hell of a lot more than I like DJU. And then I think Memphis is a sneaky team that could beat them.
Dude, I was just about to say that. That might be, out of all of the sneaky out of conference games between like a ranked team and an unranked team, there's Penn State, West Virginia that everybody's going to talk about. I think Florida State, Memphis has the potential to be like, oh fuck, like that just happened.
Yeah,
Like
100.
I feel like we get one of those every year. We had Florida beating a unranked Florida being a ranked Utah. We have like unranked Duke beating a ranked Clemson. I think this year unranked Memphis beating a ranked Florida State would be,
Yeah.
although by week 3 Memphis could be ranked, so like don't hold me to that, but like that could be an upset where that wouldn't surprise me at all.
No, and Memphis is not like it, like, to people that aren't like super well versed in college ball right now. You might think that Memphis is sort of just like middle of the pack group of 5 team, but no, they should be like far and away favorites to win the American. They should be, a threat to really anyone they play. So yeah, I think that 8-4 or 9-3 is my prediction for Florida State. To avoid being too harsh on them, I guess I'll go 9-3 with them beating Memphis, but 8-4 is kind of what my heart wants me to pick. So take what you want.
That's fair. I have them going 10-2. I have them losing to Miami, and I have them losing to Notre Dame. So still a very good team, still a very talented team. But 10-2 is my prediction there. I'm really truly interested because I thought DJU played better last year at Oregon State than what he did his last season at Clemson. The question is will that continue at Florida State? Jordan Travis was much better at Florida State than he was when he was at Louisville. Can Mike Norvell and Alex Atkins get the best out of DJU? I don't know the answer to that question. And I'm very interested to see. I think Florida State fans maybe that. I also think like they might be 10-2, but that'll be a hard 10-2. Like if they do go 10-2, they're gonna have to pull some shit out of their ass.
Yeah, and if they go 10-2 that way with a Miami and a Notre Dame loss, then I think that is college football playoff. Now, I think there's a world that they could squeak in. I just don't see, like, I like a lot of these ACC teams equally, it feels like. It's just like the blind confidence of like they're going to win the ACC, and like they're going to be the 3 seed in the college football playoffs. Like they don't have sufficient talent, in my opinion, and their schedule's too hard. So it would just be crazy to me.
Yep. Keeping it moving to Georgia Tech, who let's talk about Georgia Tech a little bit. If there is one team that I was like, I am very, very wrong about from last year, it was Georgia Tech. I thought they were going to stink. I thought Haynes King was washed, and they went 7-6. Like they were solid. Brent Key looked good. Now they had no business winning that Miami game, but damn it, they did. And I don't know. I kind of like something about Georgia Tech this year. They play a brutal schedule, an absolutely brutal schedule. But I don't hate this team. Like I think they could be solid.
Yeah, it's obviously it's very tricky because again, I think we were both talking during our ACC preview episode last year about like why are they even in the conference? Like I think I remember saying like why is Vanderbilt still in the SEC? Why is Georgia Tech even in the ACC if they're just not going to try? And then they won a bowl game, and it's like, oh, wait a second, but they shoved it up me, but like this, I can't buy into them being any better this year, even if they look better because of that schedule. So I think that FSU game in Dublin might be really close, right? Like could be, 27-24 or something where it's like, whoa, is FSU not that good or is Georgia Tech really good? But then I think they lose to Syracuse, Notre Dame, Miami, NC State, and Georgia. The only game there that I think, like Syracuse, I guess they could beat. They're not beating Notre Dame. They're not beating Georgia. I highly doubt they beat Miami, especially after last year. So,
Yeah, they legitimately play 5 teams who could win 10 games next year. Florida State, Notre Dame, Virginia Tech, Miami, and Georgia all could win 10 games. Like I
Oh,
don't
so
think that's
I
out of the
have them
question.
beating Virginia Tech, I guess, then. Yeah, I
Yeah.
do.
So, but they could also do that. I have them going 7-5. I think they're going to have what I think people would consider as a good year, and I think they could make a bowl game, and you know, all things looking positive for the Yellow Jackets.
Possibly.
Yep.
At least
Keeping it
it's
moving to
trending.
Louisville, huh?
At least it's trending up.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, go.
Speaking of teams that I think, I'll just be very honest. I think Louisville is trending in the wrong direction.
Mm.
I like Jeff Brom a lot, and I think Jeff Brom is a very good head coach. Last year, Louisville played 8 home games. 8. They played 4 games on the road, and those 4 games were unbelievably easy that they played on the road. Um, I just am not as
Well,
much of a fan of this Louisville team as I think some people are. Last year, their games that they played on the road, NC State, Pitt, Miami, and that's it. They actually played 3 true road games last year.
yeah.
They played
No, I
3
remember looking
true
like
road games and 1 neutral site
there was a
against
lot of
Georgia Tech.
value in Louisville's over last year because of that schedule.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's different this year, but I don't know if I would say trending in the wrong direction because I think they're doing pretty well in the transfer portal. And they have a good bag. They have a good NIL bag. And like Colin Lacey out of South Alabama, that receiver, I think he's great. They got someone else as well. And then what's their quarterback from Texas Tech?
Tyler
Tyler
Shaw.
Tyler, Tyler Shaw. I don't know how to feel about him necessarily, but he's definitely not like bad. Like whoever they had last year wasn't good.
Plummer was
Yeah,
not great last year.
yeah, he was bad. So I don't think that's like a downgrade by any means. Obviously, they lost their running back to the draft. He went off against Notre Dame, I remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, no way they beat Notre Dame this year.
At Notre Dame.
Yeah, like I have them going 7-5. So I'm with you.
Okay.
I'm guessing in the sense of like they're not going to have that great of a record, but I don't think they're going to like look bad. I think they're going to be a competitive team. Like the Clemson game should be like a good game. Miami game should be a good game. I have them losing to Kentucky, Notre Dame, Miami, Clemson, and then Georgia Tech.
So I think you have them losing to the exact same games I do, actually.
Nice, cool.
So yeah, I also have them going 7-5. They have some of the better odds to win the ACC at plus 650, but I
Yeah, no,
I don't hate this. Again, I don't hate this team. I just don't think, like, if you were to tell Louisville fans right at the end of last year that, like, hey, next year you're going to go 7-5, yeah, they would be disappointed in that. So,
right. But then you tell them in 2018, hey, like you're going to be making bowl games consistently again pretty soon. They'd be like, sweet, right?
yeah.
Because I mean, I remember Clemson beat them 77 to like 10 back in 2018. So it was they were pretty bad for a little bit there. So they're still not like trending down in my opinion.
Yep. They're still a football school for the moment.
Yeah, maybe.
Let's get to a team that seems to have hype every single offseason. Every single offseason, we seem to talk about them. And every single year, I feel like we're let down a little bit.
North Carolina?
No. Different, but no. Miami.
Yeah.
This is one of the, like, Mario Cristobal has to get it together this year.
Mm-hmm.
They lost a game last year that they had no business losing in that Georgia Tech game. But this is a team that their win total is the same as Florida State and Clemson at 9.5. But unlike Florida State and Clemson, their schedule is the 50th in terms of strength of schedule amongst Power 4 teams. They play a significantly easier schedule than either of those two teams. They return a pretty decent amount in terms of production, but they bring in Cam Ward at quarterback from Washington State, who was a bona fide stud last year. They're plus 400 to win the ACC.
Yep.
I think this is a team that could potentially make the playoff.
Yeah, I don't hate that bet. I like Miami. They got Damian Martinez out of Oregon State.
Yep.
And then they got Cam Ward, obviously. They have
They got
Xavier
that defensive tackle
Restrepo.
from Michigan State too.
Yeah. No, they did really well in the portal. And again, that schedule is not hard. Like the losses I have them, or the teams I have them losing to are kind of like weird just because I'm like, Miami's not going 12-1, blah, blah, blah. But like Cal and Syracuse in the regular season are the two teams I have them losing to. I have them really just playing great football this year because, again, they lose that or they beat that FSU and Louisville, and there's not really anything else on that schedule that scares me.
I have them losing 3 games, and I think you're gonna. I don't think you would be able to pick those 3 games if you wanted to.
Yeah, like, I mean, again, Cal and Syracuse. Syracuse, I do think is a sneaky good team. We'll get to that, but Cal would be one of those Georgia Tech fluke losses.
Yeah, I have them losing at Florida in week 1 because Florida seems to do that in week 1. I have them losing to Virginia Tech because I'm very high on the Hokies this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I have them losing to South Florida.
South Florida.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, again, I can't hate because I have them losing to Cal. So
I am fucking high on the Bulls. Like, when we talk about the best of the rest and the best group of 5 teams, we're going to talk about USF. I can promise you that. Alex Golesh is building a dynasty down in Tampa. Don't sleep on him. Anyway, yeah, I have Miami going 9-3. I think they could fight for a playoff spot. I think there will be a 1 or 2 3-loss teams that get into the college football playoff. The question is who are those teams going to be? Is Miami's lack of difficult games on this schedule going to hurt them compared to, if we had like a 3-loss Missouri or a 3-loss Ole Miss, right? Like they play a much more difficult schedule. So
it's tricky though, because if they lost to the teams that we have them losing to, that implies that they beat the good teams they played, which might give them enough of a boost in like, public, general public eye, where it's like, oh, they beat Florida State, like look, or they beat Louisville, blah blah blah. Yeah. People would kind of just throw away that loss to Syracuse because let's say Syracuse is good this year, which you never know. But yeah, I have them losing 3, but that's just we'll get to that later.
Yeah, I don't think Cristobal is a good enough coach to have them go undefeated. I just don't. It is what it is.
No, they're not.
Like, there will be some
I do think they 10 win team. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I can absolutely see that.
Yep. Keeping it moving. NC State. They have another transfer quarterback this year, but instead of Devin Leary, it is Grayson McCall, who has been a long time Carolina boy, but just at Coastal Carolina. I love his game. His game.
He's awesome.
I'm very excited to see how this NC State team does. They have a pretty easy schedule. I'm going to be very honest. Their most difficult game far and away is at Clemson, but they played 4 true road games this year.
They have Tennessee as well, right?
Oh yeah, true. Their most difficult game is still at Clemson though. They get Tennessee.
Yeah, but Tennessee is a tough one.
Yeah.
Which I have.
They're plus 700 to win the conference. Like this isn't a team
and not a terrible bet.
Nope. But what are your thoughts?
I have them losing to Tennessee. I think that game, that's a week 1 game or week 2, something like that. It's like week 2. And it's one of those like random, games like I'm super, super excited to watch.
Week 2 has a great slate. This will be one of a lot of good games that week.
Yeah, very excited for that. I think that could be like an instant classic, sort of like overtime. Like, wow, both these teams are fun. They have their flaws. Like, we'll get to Tennessee when we get to the SEC, but I think NC State is a team that's going to be ranked pretty much the entire year. Tennessee lost, Clemson lost, and then I have them losing to North Carolina as well, and winning the rest. So 9-3, but 10 wins is in the cards for sure.
Yep. I have them on the other side of that. I have them going 8-4, but still a damn good season for NC State. Before we get into the back half of the ACC, if you want to see all of the betting information for every single one of these teams that we're talking about, each team has a page in my betting guide. It is in the link in the description of this video or in the link of my bio if you want to check that out on social media. It's $20. It's over 100 pages long, filled with every ounce of information that you will need to make bets during the college football season and before the college football season if you want to bet on some of these win totals that we're talking about. So absolutely make sure, go check out that guide. I truly think it is a unique and awesome tool to make you a better sports bettor.
It was a great read. Again, 100 pages, but it flies by. It's like not like a daunting read just because it reads so easily and everything's so interesting. So long as you like college football, it's absolutely worth it, and it's just $20, so I would buy it.
Yeah, and if you're watching this, you damn at this point you like college football. If you're this deep into our ACC preview, you love college football. All right, let's keep it moving. North Carolina. I'm going to be very honest. I don't really have a lot to be excited about on this team. Amarian Hampton is going to be a great player, but the offense doesn't excite me outside of that because I'm not a fan of Max Johnson as a quarterback. They play a pretty easy schedule for the most part, but they play a lot of weird games at Minnesota. They play JMU, which should be really exciting. But yeah, I have them going 6-6. They're plus 3,000 to win the ACC. It's the eh.
I almost had them. Losing to JMU. JMU takes like a year off before they get that magic back, because I do believe JMU is just a magical team in every sport, it seems like. But they lost a little too much for me to make that call this year. I have Minnesota beating them. I think that'd be like a pretty big statement win. I don't think Minnesota is going to be great, but like PJ Fleck, like just getting that program, maybe some energy back into it. I can see that happening. I also that Hamon Rucker. I think there's a chance that he ends up being like a top 5 pick type guy. Like he's so good, dude. Like I was watching film, doing my like top 100 players of college football vid, and I was blown away. Like I moved him from like 38 to like 10 after the film I watched. Now, obviously, that's just one player, but he commands a double. They have sufficient talent there. They're still well coached enough. They're probably going to lose a weird one. I have them losing to Virginia. Or I have them losing to Virginia and Boston College. So 2 weird ones, but then Georgia Tech, FSU, Minnesota, winning the rest, 7-5 for me. I think 8-4 is possible, but nothing higher for me.
That's fair. That is totally fair. Keeping it moving to Pitt. Pat Narduzzi, I'm going to be honest. Pitt's quarterback, I'm not sure who it is this year. It looks like Nate Yarnell, but I think it's going to be an open quarterback competition. Either way, I think this team stinks. I think there's a shot that they win the backyard brawl against West Virginia, but I doubt it. I mean,
that's a different piece, though. The backyard brawl is like you could be one team's great, one team's bad. Anything can happen. So I actually do have them winning that. Losing to Cincinnati, who I think is getting a little undervalued, but we'll get there later videos. Losing to North Carolina, Syracuse, who I am high on, if you can't tell by this point, SMU, who I'm also high on, and Clemson and Louisville. So 6-6 for me. They kind of squeak into a bowl. It's not a good bowl. They're playing like Bowling Green in like frickin' the Armed Forces Bowl or something.
That's fair. That's fair. Their win total's 5.5. So we're splitting that on opposite sides of it. But yeah, Pitt's just not a team that I have super strong feelings on.
Pretty lame this year. I haven't like talked to like a Pitt fan who's like, oh, can't wait for football. Like I don't think the energy's not there for this team this year.
Yeah. Let's talk about SMU, which is out of all the conference realignment, this is one of the more interesting to me because SMU back in the 80s was a football powerhouse. The Mustangs were rolling. And then you had the Pony Express paying the players scandal. But now that it's legal, They have one of the best NIL bags. Like Sleepy, don't diss on SMU. They moved to the ACC, and they have Preston Stone, who I know that I'm going to get some shit for this take. I think that Preston Stone at SMU is the best quarterback right now in the state of Texas.
Oh, whoa.
I think he's better than Quinn Ewers. I think he's that damn good.
Yeah, that feels. Maybe I need to watch some Preston Stone film. That feels insane. But I don't know. So clearly, I don't think that can't be too far off if you're saying it. So I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. But I do think this SMU team is built to succeed in the ACC immediately. I do believe in that. And I don't think their schedule's that hard. So
out of the 70 power conference teams, they have the 68th most difficult schedule.
Yeah. So
very
I think
easy schedule.
10 wins is like with Florida State and Louisville losses and they go 10-2. That seems extremely possible to me. And it is fascinating. Like it's a really good get for the ACC. It's a sneaky like team that might just be, fighting for ACC championships pretty much immediately in football, at least, which I think is really cool. They had like some decent basketball teams in the past, and I don't know about baseball, but like Shemi Ojale, that was an SMU guy. They've been in some tournaments, so I think that SMU is probably, if we're talking about trending in a direction, they're in a good spot right now, and 10-2 with that schedule, they probably have to beat one of Florida State or Louisville to get into the college football playoff, or just win the ACC. But I think they would probably end up right outside for me, but be ranked at the end of the year 10 wins. I'm very high on this team.
I have them at 9-3. Their win total is 7.5. This is one of my favorite bets.
Really? 7.5. Wow.
Yeah. This is one of my favorite bets of the preseason. Just knowing how easy their schedule is, how good this team is. They got quite a bit in the transfer portal. This is a team that's ready to rock, and I'm looking forward to it. They should play some.
I think I'm going to place that. I'm going to place that bet for sure. That's crazy. 7.5.
Yeah.
What do they know that we don't?
Keeping it moving. Stanford. Their win total is 3.5. They went 3-9 last year. They lost to Sacramento State.
Yeah. Beat Colorado.
They beat Colorado in a wild comeback game, actually. Like that was one of the better games of the college football season.
That's the only game I watched, I think, that Stanford was in. I don't think I watched any Stanford football besides that game, and it was awesome. Ashton Daniels, I think, is underrated. I think they have Alec Ayomanor.
Oh, the wide receiver. He's good.
Yep. Yeah, he's really good. It's a tricky team. Like obviously they're not a bowl game team for me. But I think I have all their losses coming in conference. I think their out of conference isn't that bad. I just think they're going to really struggle in the ACC. I think I have them losing every game that they play in the ACC.
I also have them losing every ACC game. So
it's not the best. Or I guess Notre Dame is not an ACC team, so that's a loss outside. So maybe I have them winning one ACC game and then losing 7. 4-8 is my prediction for Stanford. No way they get to 6, in my opinion. But I do think Ashton Daniels, Alec Ayomanor, could be like a little electric here and there.
Yep, I have them going 2-10. So I think they're going to stink. I think they're one of the worst teams in power conference football.
Yeah, 2-10 is pretty rough. That would suck for them. But I miss when Stanford was good. Hopefully they get good again.
Same. I also miss when Stanford was good. Let's talk about Syracuse. You're high on them, and I want to hear your thoughts because I am also high on them. I think, they got Kyle McCord, and I think that was a great pickup. I like the hiring of Fran Brown. I think he's going to be a good coach. But what are your thoughts on this Syracuse team? Because
I love the hiring of Fran Brown. We talked about it when we touched on college football after the season ended, and there were a couple coaching moves, and I was really pumped about that. Then they get Kyle McCord, who my main thing with that is like Kyle McCord wasn't bad enough or despised necessarily for there to be like negative emotional and confidence issues that he's having. It's just like when you play for Ohio State, you are thrown into kind of the biggest thing you can in the sport. And then you go to Syracuse, and things are probably going to seem a little bit easier. And I just, again, don't think that his confidence is going to be like shot, kind of like, who Tate Martell, JT Daniels, some of those guys that were like highly touted. And then everyone was like, you're dog shit, you idiot, leave, like DJU. But Kyle McCord is just Ohio State's building this freaking super team. And he's like, I'm going to go take my talents elsewhere. And I'm sure there are some Ohio State guys that didn't like him, but again, it's not the same level of hate as you might think if you're an Ohio State fan. So I think that's going to be great. They have Gradston, who I thought was a really highly touted draft prospect that got hurt last year, so he stayed. He's awesome. Couple other pieces here and there. I think their defense is actually pretty good. I like Syracuse. I don't know. What's their win total?
Their win total is 7.5.
Yeah, okay. I got them going 9-3.
Wow.
I got them. Yeah, lost to NC State, Virginia Tech, and then Cal. But I can even see them going 10-2. Like, I think this Syracuse team is really good.
Yep. I have them going 7-5, but I think they could have that could be a 7-5 where they commandingly win some of those games.
Mm-hmm.
Like
they're good 7-5, not a bad 7-5.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to see him in a bowl game. If
I think Syracuse could be a surprise. This year, it's I kind of call my shot every now and then, like TCU 2 years ago. That was my surprise. I think Maryland was my pick last year. That was
Maryland was definitely your pick last year.
That was a bust. But Syracuse is close. We have more time left, so I might 2 weeks from now be like, you know what, screw it, 10-2. They make it to the ACC Championship game. Blah, blah. Like, I can see myself getting there. I think Syracuse could end up being like that. That's my no one else thinks it team but me.
I love it. I love it. I love that we're getting it early this year.
Oh yeah, it's bad that we're getting it early because things are going to change.
Yep. Let's talk Virginia. Their win total's 4.5. This is a team that has been through a lot the last couple of years. Obviously, the Tony Elliott era has not been outstanding, but I don't think a lot of that is Tony Elliott's fault. I think he's been dealt a pretty bad hand, but I still have a lot of concern about this team. They play a lot of tough games. They have to go on the road to Coastal Carolina. They play at Clemson, at Pitt, at Notre Dame, at Virginia Tech. I mean, that road schedule is just brutal. They were favored in 2 games last year and went 3-9. Their win total's 4.5 this year. I have them at 4-8. I haven't seen enough from this team to think that they're going to take the next step under Tony Elliott, and I think this may be his last season.
I agree. 4-8 for me. I think Coastal Carolina. People just hear the name and correlate that with them being at least competent. I think Coastal Carolina is probably going to be really bad this year, so I have that as a UVA win. And then obviously Notre Dame. No way they win that. So we're kind of getting a sneak peek here that I have Notre Dame being pretty darn good.
Yeah, you fucking do.
I do. Yeah, I do. Wake Forest, Maryland. I have them losing to Maryland. So Wake Forest, Louisville, Clemson, Pitt, SMU, Virginia Tech. That's pretty tough. They could beat Wake Forest. They could beat Pitt. Maybe they somehow find their way to 6-6. I can see why Vegas set it at 4.5 and not like 3.5. But I'm going to go 4-8. I think they go under.
Yep. I have them at 4-8 as well. Let's talk about the other Virginia team. I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here.
Go ahead.
This Virginia Tech team has the 65th most difficult schedule out of the 70 power conference teams. If you want to, all of the stars align, they are aligning because they have the most returning production out of any team in college football. They return every single starter on defense. And add all of that up with Brent Pry and what this schedule looks like. They have Kyron Drones at quarterback, who is not only an electric athlete, but he is a great decision maker. He's a great leader. I think that the question of that we had on last episode of whether or not Kyron Drones is a Heisman contender, I think he legitimately has a shot to be this year. I think this Virginia Tech team could compete for a college football playoff spot. They are plus 1,200 to win the ACC. I am absolutely going to throw some money on that, and I am hammering the over 8.5 wins. This Virginia Tech team is damn good. And when that Enter Sandman starts playing late October, early November, and teams have to come into their house to try to win these damn tough football games, it's going to be a raucous environment in Blacksburg, Virginia.
Yeah, good monologue. I am high on Virginia Tech, but cautiously so. Just not because of anything you said, because it almost seems like the stars have aligned so perfectly that everybody's talking about it. And what's true and what I love and hope for is, a relevant Virginia Tech. You've heard this, some other podcasters, or there's some clips here and there, like Reese Davis talking about it. Like Virginia Tech, when they're good, for some of these guys that are like 38 years old, they remember Mike Vick, Tyrod Taylor, Frank Beamer, these, D'Angelo Hall, like awesome Virginia Tech teams, where it was a football school that had as much football energy as any other team in the country. And a lot of these younger 15-year-old college football fans associate Virginia Tech with being bad. And it's sad. So I've always hoped for a relevant Virginia Tech, and the stars have aligned so aggressively that it feels like it's almost inevitable that it's going to happen this year. But I have to take caution, because whenever there's such mass public love for something that is unproven, like Virginia Tech was good, not great, but good last year. Yes, they return all the production. Yes, their schedule is easy, but it's still unproven to me. It's worrisome. So like I have them going 10-2, but I wouldn't place the bet, if that makes sense. Like that's kind of my conclusion, is that I don't feel confident enough. 8.5's tough because I really like 9-3. Like 8-4 seems like that'd be a little bit of a disappointment, but it's still caution. I can't ignore it. There are a couple other teams we'll get to in later videos that are, maybe the stars are just too aligned, and you have to exercise a little bit of caution. So I have them losing to Miami, and then I have them losing to Georgia Tech, not Clemson. I have them beating Clemson. The problem is, because of that Miami loss, no ACC championship berth. Therefore, probably no college football playoff. But as you said, they will be right there in the contention, and there's a chance that they're ranked in the top 10 in late November after that Clemson win, if it happens, where the energy is just off the freaking charts. But are they going to close well? I don't know. We'll have to see.
Yep, I also have them going 10-2. So I think this is going to be a damn good team. I'm excited to watch them. That might be the team that I hitch my wagon to this year. I truly believe that.
Love that.
Last team in the ACC, Wake Forest. I'm going to be honest. Nothing about this team excites me. Their win total is 4.5. If anything, I trust Dave Clawson enough to pull out some wins where I think he probably shouldn't get some wins, because he is a pretty solid head coach. But this is a team that went 4-8 last year. They were not good. And I don't think they're going to be that great this year. So I have them going 5-7.
I have them going 5-7. Pretty much the exact same reasoning as, like, I just think they're coached just well enough to hit the over. If it's 4.5, Ole Miss, they're not winning that game. No. NC State, Clemson, Miami, those are tough. But then you got to remember, this is Wake Forest. This is not a team that is guaranteed any wins. So I have them losing to Stanford and Duke and some of the other bottom barrel teams in the ACC. And I think that's realistic, right? If you're a Wake Forest fan, like if you go into that Stanford game expecting to be double-digit favorites, just got a rude awakening for you. It's not going to happen. 5-7 actually feels generous. But that is what I have.
Yep. They were awful outside of Winston-Salem last year.
They played Louisiana this year as well?
Yes.
I think they could lose that game too. That's a tough one. Louisiana's pretty good.
Yep. So I have them at 5-7. You have them at 5-7, but not a ton of confidence. Before we get into which right at an hour, fucking nailed that.
Nice.
Before we get into our championship previews, Home Field, if you are a fan of the ACC, Home Field has merch for your college team. They have some awesome Florida State gear, some awesome Clemson gear. Use code NICK15 for 15% off your first purchase at Home Field Apparel. The link is in the description of our bios if you want to use that, or in the description of this video if you're watching on YouTube. But shout out Home Field. They make the best college merch. I have some on here, the Notre Dame Dunking Irishman. So go check them out. They are a great supporter of the podcast, and helping them helps us. But Nick, let's not beat around the bush here. Your ACC title game and your champion.
Yeah, Clemson, Miami, and it's tough because I have 3 teams finishing 10-2. Virginia Tech, 2 ACC losses. SMU, I have with Florida State and Louisville lost, so that's 2 ACC losses. Miami, I think, just gets the tiebreaker from the math I did because they beat Virginia Tech, and I think there was something else in whatever site I was using that just gave it to Miami. So that would be a really good season for Miami. That would be a really fun ACC championship game. Clemson, SMU, Clemson, Virginia Tech would also be fun, but Clemson, Miami, I think that would be really awesome. I have Clemson winning that game. They lost to Miami last year. They don't play them this year. They should have beat Miami last year. It's crazy that we lost that game. It doesn't make any sense to me still. Chip on your shoulder, got to win it. So, yeah, that's the take there. But 4 teams with double-digit wins, and then 3 teams with 9 wins, which is kind of good. It's good for the ACC.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of good football in the ACC this year. I have Florida State, Clemson in the title game this year. And I know you hate to say this. I'm going to give it to Florida State. Truly in my mind, a coin flip game. And I would not be surprised either way. We are not going to go through our college football playoff predictions until after we get through all of our conference picks. But they are not. I have some faith in the ACC this year. So
you have Florida State beating Clemson twice this year.
Yes, and the more that you talked about Clemson, the less I am confident in that. Out of all of my conference predictions, for what it's worth, the ACC is the one that I am the least confident in. The Big 12 is insane, and I still feel better about picking a Big 12 champ than I do about the ACC.
Yeah, that I just am struggling to even like I don't know how I would even process that, dude. 2 losses.
Yeah.
And that would probably kick us out because we'd have 3 losses, maybe not, but obviously prediction. And not saying that's impossible because, again, we could just go down the idiot route again and just be a freaking idiot team. That could happen. And I guess if that does happen, then I could blame us a little bit more than just being like, God damn it, DJU beat us. We played well, but he threw for 500 yards. Like that would end me, That would
be the ultimate, like, Dabo Swinney not using the transfer portal and then getting beat by his own player from the transfer portal would be
twice.
It would be comedy for me. I would get a good laugh out of it. And it would suck.
Like that, I can't equate, like that's like like, I don't know, like the Ravens losing to the Steelers 3 times in a season when
like
the
matching up
Steelers,
at
I
all.
don't even think the Steelers, like if that happened this year with Russell Wilson's
Oh
Steelers
yeah.
and the Ravens are this good and we lose to them twice, but then we somehow play them in the divisional round and they beat us at our place. I like that's that level of pain. But again, I don't think that's possible either. So
Yeah, I'm not rooting for this to happen. It's just what I think will happen. So
no,
if
yeah,
that makes you feel
it's
any better.
fair, 100%. It's that one's so tricky because again, I try not to be like biased, and obviously, I don't want to like impact your picks just because of like a Clemson
I
bias.
know,
But
but when you went on that spiel on Clemson, but I can't change my mind because I already put out the guide. So fuck, I'm
yeah, you
stuck.
can't, and that's the thing is that um, like it's more so me giving you the perspective of this is what your average Clemson fan and just the whole student body and the energy around the campus. That's how we feel. And I think for a lot of other people out there that are just like, oh, Florida State, Clemson, whatever. This year it is not like that. It is freaking like a freaking shootout, like an old cowboy. If we don't win, kill me. That type of thing.
Love it. Love it. All right, before we get into our ACC draft, SeatGeek, it's almost football season. If you're going to a game, use promo code SmashHitSports to get $20 off your first purchase. I've said it a million times, but college football is best enjoyed in person at the tailgates, at the stadiums, with the electric environments that college football has. So if you're going to any of the games this year, use SeatGeek, use promo code SmashHitSports, get $20 off your first purchase, and it helps the pod. That being said, this ACC draft. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go we're gonna go snake. Actually, no, fuck it. Let's just go back and forth. We're going to go back and forth. I will let you go first because the ACC is your conference. We are going to be drafting a head coach, a quarterback, a running back, a wide receiver, a defense, and then a stadium and a tradition is what
Okay.
we will be drafting. Now, Nick, there is one rule. You cannot pick the same team twice. So, for example, if you pick Dabo Sweeney, you cannot pick Howard's Rock as your tradition. So,
okay,
choose wisely, and I will
Um,
give you the first pick.
Okay, so this is tough because I have to think about what you would take early and try to see if I can snag it before you do. As far as quarterbacks go, there's not like you're probably going to go with Preston Stone, but you just take them later. There's a couple guys out there. It's not pressing. Running backs tough, wide receivers tough, defense. Could go Clemson's defense. Stadium tradition. How about I'll do this just to start it out. I'll go Clemson's defense because I don't think you would take what I'm thinking of for anything else right now.
That's
And
a
I
great
think,
pick.
yeah, I think that's probably got to be the best unit in the ACC defense wise.
Yep. I would agree. I mean, in my mind, that is the best defense in the ACC. I'm going to draft my tradition first. And the tradition that I'm going to get is Renegade and Osceola coming onto the field pregame. Oh,
Okay.
The chop, the Seminole chant, the flaming spear. You cannot beat it. So my tradition is Renegade and Osceola, Florida State's entrance.
Okay. So I'm going to go tradition as well. And I'm going to go red bandana, Boston College. I think that is.
Oh, that's a tremendous pick.
Yeah,
that's a tremendous pick.
So sick. The meaning behind it is awesome. You can see the difference in how they play their red bandana game versus just a regular game. Like it is, the passion is unbelievable. And just like the drip, dude, it's nuts how like cool it looks. One of the other reasons, like Boston College being good, would be awesome because of things like that. So yeah, red bandana for me.
We need to add next conference draft. We're adding uniforms because that deserves a category in and of itself.
Yeah, that's I would qualify that as a tradition and a uniform.
Yes.
But you are definitely right that uniform should be one.
Yep. I'm gonna pick a category that you have not picked yet. I'm gonna go Cal's Jaden Ott at running back. I think he has a chance to be one of the best running backs in the country. The dude's an absolute stud. He's gonna put up numbies this year.
Numbies.
So give me Jaden Ott.
Okay, I like that. I have my running back in mind for sure, but it's tough, dude. What? I'm like kind of like looking through some of my favorite players here, trying to decide who I want to go with. Because like wide receiver wise, maybe I go. I'm just gonna go QB, and I'm gonna go Cameron Ward. I like Cameron Ward a lot.
Yeah, and I think he does have a shot to be the best quarterback in the conference this year. I mean, he absolutely could be. He's a damn stud. So
agreed.
I don't hate that pick one bit. I'm going to go wide receiver. I'm going to top off the skill positions here. I am going to go Eric
Manor, maybe.
Manor. The dude was so – I just cannot get the game he had against Colorado out of my mind. Mm-hmm. And it was so good.
He's so good.
So good.
There are a lot of there's like probably 7 wide receivers that are the exact same as far as like talent goes in my mind in the ACC. So that's a really tricky one.
Yeah.
Just because it's like I'm thinking like Kevin Concepcion out of NC State is fucking sick. But then you have Colin Lacey, Louisville, I like a lot. And Restrepo out of Miami. I can't use Miami actually. It's tricky, but I think I go Concepcion. I think he's gonna have a great year. Like with Grayson McCall, and he's a true sophomore as well. He was amazing last year.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. He's a stud. I put myself in a tight spot here with my defense because I can't pick Florida State's, and I think they have the second best defense in the conference. So I'm going to go with the third best defense in the conference in my mind this year, and I'm going to go with Miami. They added some guys on the defensive line. I think they improved there. I think Miami is going to be better defensively, and say what you will about Cristobal, but he is a defensive guy first and foremost. So I'm going to take Miami's defense.
Okay, Miami's defense. They have some guys. They have a Ruben Bain, who I think is a true sophomore, who I think is like just an unbelievable 2 years from now top 10 type guy. I am going to go with my running back, and it's going to be Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina. That's who I wanted.
Jaden Ott and Omarion Hampton were going to be the 2 running backs selected.
Yeah, I'm a Hampton guy over an Ott guy, but definitely
1A, 1B. I mean, they're both great. I'm gonna have to go Clemson here. I got to pick Dabo as my head coach. Hey, we play in God's name, image, and likeness at my program. I can tell you that much. So, give me Dabo Swinney as my head man, leading the Smash Hit Sports, the Smashes over here, the Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah,
we are.
So head coach and stadium left for me. You have quarterback and stadium. So the strategy play would be to go stadium, but the problem is there are a lot I can't use and a lot that I can't think of. So like I'm pretty sure Cal has like a really unique stadium
on a fault line.
Yeah, it's kind of cool, but I think the one I'm leaning towards, and it feels wrong, but we'll ignore it. But I'm gonna go Acrisure, which is Heinz Field, basically. It's the Pittsburgh Stadium.
No.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
The scenery of being on the fucking river with like the aerial shot is actually so beautiful of that stadium. And I saw Tay-Sway there, so I'm well versed in it, and I liked that stadium a lot. A lot of stadiums I have not been to in that sense. Oh yeah, my bad. I put that on head coach.
That's
my pick.
If you were going to pick a college football team that plays in an NFL stadium, I do think Pitt is the best of that. So
yeah, it's tough because we're not drafting like the energy and the tailgate and all that.
Yeah.
Drafting the stadium. So in my head, it's like that's a very scenic stadium and it's big and I don't know. I like it, but if you by stadium, if you meant more of the specifics that really tie it into college, then maybe that was a bad pick. But I like that stadium a lot.
It is what it is. I have two picks that I think I want to go for my stadium, and I think I'm going to go with Lane Stadium in Blacksburg. If we want to include things that come along with it, Enter Sandman's pretty sick, but I think that does fall into more. That's the tradition in my mind.
We're gonna get clowned for not taking Enter Sandman as tradition.
I get that, but like that song and that tradition is kind of newer, and like yes, the red bandana is kind of newer too, but that's also like that's a powerful fucking tradition.
Yeah, so, it is just crazy that Enter Sandman kind of just didn't come to mind. I just thought red bandana. I was like, oh, that's an easy pick, but I don't know because if we give you Enter Sandman on stadium, which you could argue that because of the jumping and whatnot.
We're not. We'll give the Lane Stadium environment, but I can't do Enter Sandman because that is a tradition through and through. But I will take Lane Stadium because I do think Blacksburg at night. Like I do think that is a pretty cool stadium, so that's what I'm rocking with.
Okay. All right. So then I have head coach left, and like the obvious pick is Mike Norvell here. He did a great job last year. Great in the portal, motivator. Think everyone on that team loves him. He's pretty bona fide second best guy in the ACC in my opinion.
Yeah, I very easily the second best coach in that conference. It could be, if Dabo and him get to play for an ACC title, could be interesting.
If he beats us 3 times this year, then maybe we'll talk. But he needs to make the playoff first. Obviously, he's not close to Dabo quite yet, in my opinion. But and yeah, Preston Stone for you.
And that ends my draft ends with quarterback Preston Stone, who is. I'm going to be honest. Yes, I'm higher on him than most guys, but God damn it, he can throw the football, and I love the way that he throws the football. So. Give me Preston Stone. So to end it, the Nick Batemans have Mike Norvell leading out an unbelievable offense with Cam Ward, Amarion Hampton, and Kevin Concepcion. Their defense in Clemson is going to be holding it down in the red bandana jerseys as they come out of the tunnel at Acrisure Stadium. That sounds like a pretty damn good program. It sounds like a pretty damn good program. My team is going to be entering behind Renegade and Osceola at Lane Stadium with the Miami defense leading my team. On offense, we are going to have Preston Stone, Jaden Ah, and Elic Aomenor, who is coached up by, God bless him, Dabo Swinney.
Yeah.
I feel good. Yeah. I feel good about our programs. I feel good.
Well, I'll have to post a graphic of this and we'll have people vote on.
Yeah, absolutely. But if you were watching this video on YouTube, comment who won, whether it's me or Nick. But that being said, that is our ACC preview. We will be back with another conference preview next week. We will do Nick, let's make a decision. We'll do the Big 12 next.
Cool.
We'll do the Big 12 next. So keeping it moving. We'll do the Big 12, and we will see you then. Peace.